Welcome, everybody, to the Flagship podcast interview. Very excited to be joined to talk NCAA basketball with 24/7 Sports college basketball expert Travis Branham. Travis, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's that time of year. It's the best time. It's the most exciting, but it's also that time where you're basically working 24 hours. It's awesome, man. I'm excited to be here and I appreciate you having me on, Chip.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the biggest stories of the offseason last April, had to be Chris Beard making the move from Texas Tech to Texas, and then within a matter of months, he's assembled this team of 9 newcomers, including 7 top transfers. And we know Chris Beard is the king of the transfer portal. Well, actually, the king of the transfer, even before the portal.
Yep.
We'll get to that, but let's start right where things left off at the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, where Texas has a 20-point lead against TCU. Things are looking good, and then they give up that lead in the second half, end up losing by 5. How surprised were you by that outcome?
Yeah, very surprised. I think everybody was. Anytime any well-coached team like that gives up uh, that type of lead, it's always surprising. But it also kind of points to the fact that I think people may have underestimated TCU a little bit. They're a tough, gritty squad, man. They got a lot of guys who are going to get physical with you. They're going to play hard, and anytime you have that kind of makeup about your team, you always got a fighter's chance, and obviously they did. So don't sleep on TCU. They're actually one of those teams that I currently have in the NCAA tournament as a sleeper, and think they could give, if they're able to make it past Seton Hall, who's another tough team. I think they could give Arizona some fits in that second round game. So all the way around, it was a surprising thing. But again, it also points to the fact that TCU is a pretty good basketball team that they can legitimately give you some fits with that toughness and grittiness that they bring to the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if you come out of the Big 12, you've been through it, having to face Baylor and Kansas twice, Texas Tech twice. Um, how much damage did Texas do? They were projected as a 5 seed going in, according to most bracketology, going into the Big 12 tournament, and then they end up a 6 seed and catch Virginia Tech. This team that caught fire right at the right time, needed a last second 3-pointer against Clemson in the first round of the ACC tournament to pull it off, but Virginia Tech ends up beating North Carolina and Duke, and now Texas has to play them.
Yeah. As far as the loss in the Big 12 tournament goes, I don't like, obviously, as you said, they're projected a 5 seed. Them coming out as a 6 seed to me was not a surprise. To me personally, that sounded more about right given their resume entering the postseason. So the 6 seed doesn't surprise me in the slightest bit. I don't think that loss necessarily hurt them all that much. Now, Virginia Tech, that's a dangerous matchup. Extremely well coached basketball team with a lot of experience on team. They have a bunch of transfers, guys that followed Mike Young from Wofford, so they know this system better than anybody. With guys like Storm Murphy and Keve Aluma, and so this team is they are excellent in the half court. They are very disciplined. They can hit you and punish you in a variety of ways. It's just a well-rounded basketball team with the versatility, and this is a team that I think can give Texas fits come this week.
Yeah, in terms of matchups, Texas's personnel: Marcus Carr, Courtney Ramey, Andrew Jones, Christian Bishop, Timmy Allen. How do these two teams match up?
It starts for Virginia Tech with Keve Aluma, and I'm assuming somebody, Timmy Allen, may check that one. But Keve is their go-to guy right now. That's who they want to play through in the half court. He's their leading scorer. Averages about 16 points a game, about 7 rebounds. But again, like I said, outside of him, this team is well-rounded, and they can hit you and attack you with a variety of different players. On any other night, on any given night, it can be somebody else's night. We saw Darius Maddox go for 20 points in the ACC tournament. So on Texas side of things, and this also speaks to that fumble in the Big 12 tournament of a lot of it has to do with their guards. And I think people have learned that all season long. You got to have Marcus Carr playing at a high level, and he's been a bit inconsistent, a bit underwhelming. He was considered arguably the top transfer to hit the market last year. And obviously, people have expected a little bit more out of him. And having him alongside Andrew Jones and Courtney Ramey, those are three guys who are more wired to score than they are to facilitate and play, make, and make other people better. So they're going to have to figure some stuff out because Virginia Tech knows what they're going to be doing coming into this game. Not much is really going to change with them. But Texas and those guards are really going to have to figure some things out and be clicking on all cylinders to really kind of get their way past them easily.
Yeah, Darius Maddox is the one who hit that three-pointer at the
Yep.
buzzer to beat Clemson in the first round of the ACC tournament. They got past that near-death experience and then got rolling, ended up beating North Carolina and taking down Duke. What impressed you most about Virginia Tech's run through the ACC tournament?
Again, just how well coached, how well disciplined they are. And again, that versatility of on any night, it can be somebody else's night. We saw Storm Murphy go off for 16 points one night. Again, Keve Aluma is always going to be their guy. So just the variety of options. They're a selfless basketball team. They don't care who gets the credit. And again, that's why that happens. You see these guys come off the bench and go for 15 to 20 points because they're just going to share the basketball and try to make the right basketball plays. At the end of the day, especially in a down year for the ACC, that enabled them to go on that run and make it to the NCAA tournament now.
So after the loss to TCU, Chris Beard called TCU a quote, second weekend type team about like ourselves if everything kind of goes right, end quote. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that Texas is a second weekend type team?
Talent wise, without question. When you look at that roster, they have all the talent and pieces to make it to that second weekend and make it to the Elite Eight if they want to. But again, like I was saying earlier, it's all going to come down to those guards. You know what you're basically going to get out of Timmy Allen every night. He's been their most consistent player all year long. But Marcus Carr, Andrew Jones, and Courtney Ramey are going to have to figure this out. And they're going to have to be playing. They're going to have to be cohesive. They're going to be having to play off of each other and figuring this out. If they do that, if they get hot, they can definitely be that second weekend team. And to Chris Beard's quote just about TCU, like I was saying earlier, yes, I think they could be a second weekend team. I think that if they make it past Seton Hall and they do face off with Arizona, that is one that I'm going to be watching extremely close because I think that physicality and that toughness that they bring to the basketball floor can give that Arizona basketball team some fits.
All right, we'll take a quick break with 24/7 Sports college basketball expert Travis Branham here on the Flagship podcast, but don't go anywhere. And if you're watching us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, we will roll on. And Travis, this Texas team has lost 3 straight going into the NCAA tournament, kind of an enigma, as you've alluded to. Um, you know, Chris Beard we talked about it at the beginning. He's been very successful with transfers. I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
back to his time as at Fort Scott Junior College in Seminole, but at Arkansas Little Rock, he brought in a bunch of transfers and, had a successful run, went into the NCAA tournament, played and beat Purdue, a team that they could see again if they get past Virginia Tech. But this group of transfers, it seems, after the loss, Chris Beard said, we have to have players who hate to lose more than they like to win. He said, quote, I've got some guys I'm trying to teach that to. It shouldn't be your points per game and your rebounds. It ought to be your wins. And then he went on to say, I think we've got a bunch of guys who think they have the answers, but they really don't. What does that tell you about maybe how this group of transfers has, hit or missed?
Um, with the transfer portal, especially with a lot of the guys that Texas brought in last year, a lot of these guys were, yes, very productive players at their previous stops, but those previous stops were typically losing teams. So, I mean, Marcus Carr comes from Minnesota. Richard Pitino had just lost his job. They were struggling. They probably were a tournament team, but they always suffered through injuries. Obviously, we saw how all that panned out, and here he is. Timmy Allen also comes from a basketball team where they struggled. So these are guys, for the most part, came from losing teams. So winning, knowing how to win, is something that they're trying to figure out now because they didn't learn it at their previous stops. And I think that's something that comes along with the transfer portal. If you go super portal heavy, especially inheriting, this is year one. They Chris Beard coming in to Texas from Shaka Smart, and then not being a successful program prior to that under Shaka. The guys who are returning are also trying to figure out how to win and how to be successful and make runs in the NCAA tournament like we saw Chris Beard have at Texas Tech. So all that to say, it's going to take a little time for these guys to learn how to win. And some of that's going to start coming out of just recruiting high school talent. He obviously came in late, so adding high school talent to kind of lay the foundation alongside these transfers where you can build a successful winning team. I'm not worried about this year at all, frankly. Yes, Chris Beard's going to destroy the transfer portal as he has, but once he starts getting those winning pieces alongside these guys and you get that winning culture and mentality inside that locker room, they're going to take off.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what would be your 30,000-foot view of year one under Chris Beard?
Yeah, again, not concerned at all. I know it's been a rocky year at times. People, especially with how successful they were in the transfer portal last year, maybe we all got a little too excited on what this year was going to be like. They did have 11 losses. We probably wouldn't have thought that with under Chris Beard in year one with, again, all that transfer talent. But again, what I was just saying, like once you instill that mental makeup and that culture inside that locker room, that takes a little time. It's also very difficult. And I think the Texas staff is learning that it's very difficult to bring a bunch of new players in year one, in just 1 year, and go out and win. Not many coaches across the country are able to do that, whether it be with transfers or with one and done, where you just bring in a whole new team year after year and go out and succeed. It's a very difficult thing to do. So not concerned at all. I think this is going to be a very successful staff. And think once again, they start bringing in some winning pieces and really kind of instill their core values into this team that they're just going to take off.
Yeah, I always tell Texas fans, just look at Texas Tech if you want to know
Mm-hmm.
what Chris Beard can do. I know it's been tough for Texas fans to stomach the two losses to Texas Tech, including the loss in Austin, where Texas Tech fans bought up a bunch of the tickets and had a huge presence at that game in Austin. But I mean, Texas Tech, they're a team that could do real damage in this NCAA tournament because of the talent that
Mm-hmm.
and culture that Chris Beard built at Tech, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I believe they had 14 losses in year one at Texas Tech. Year two, they go to the Elite Eight. Not saying not going to put that pressure and stuff out there that they're going to make an Elite Eight run next year, but I mean, for him to come in and have 11 losses in year one, compared to his 14 at Texas Tech, I'm not concerned. This guy knows how to build a program and build it quickly. Again, with his ability to bring in transfers, it'll happen much sooner than later.
When you look at the Big 12, Travis, obviously, Baylor and Kansas at the top, but let's stay with Texas Tech for a second. They made it to the finals of the Big 12 tournament, lost to Kansas. But what do you like about Texas Tech, and how far do you see them going?
Yeah, Mark Adams is a heck of a coach. I think we've all come to that realization loud and clear this year with what he's done. They're tough, they're gritty, they defend at an extremely high level, as does this Texas team. But just like as you would expect under a Chris Beard assistant. Mark Adams has those teams guys competing at an extremely high level on that defensive end of the floor. They make every possession on you difficult. They take you out of what you want to do. They slow the game down. It's just a very difficult matchup now. And when it comes to this March Madness run, I typically favor towards teams who like to play a little bit faster, can put some points up on the board a little bit more. But personally, actually, given their drawings, if they were to match up with Duke, I believe in the Sweet Six, yeah, it is in the Sweet 16. If they make it that far, I actually do have Texas Tech in my Elite Eight. I just like the matchups a little bit more, even though I do like guys who play a little faster than they do. But what they've done this year has been pretty spectacular, and they're doing an outstanding job over there in Lubbock.
Yeah, then would they meet Gonzaga if
Yes,
they make it to the Elite Eight?
they would.
What would
That's
you what would you think about that matchup?
that's a two polar opposites right there. Gonzaga does have a top 10 defense in the country, but they love to get up and put points on the board. So I actually have Gonzaga winning it all. So that's how I favor that matchup personally. I think Chet Holmgren is the guy who can finally push them over this hump. Andrew Nembhard, one of the best point guards in the country, is playing at an extremely high level. And then when the game slows down, like it always ends up doing late in games in March Madness, who are you going to give the basketball to and to go get you a bucket? And I think Drew Timmy's one of the best bucket getters. He's a guy that hasn't really been able to be stopped. He's just so skilled in the post. And he's so physical. And whenever he gets doubled, he can really pass the basketball out of the post and get other people involved. So I think Gonzaga, this is the year that they finally push over that hump.
Yeah, Texas saw Gonzaga up close and personal at the beginning of the season. Timmy went for 37 points. That was quite a wake-up call for Texas, who's now without Trey Mitchell, who was sort of one of their only – well, he and Dylan Dizu are the only two guys over 6'7".
Yeah.
Christian Bishop having to hold it down, playing a lot of small ball at the 5 at 6'7". But okay, staying in the Big 12, Travis, Baylor, defending national champion. Scott Drew has LJ Cryer hurt. He's got JTT hurt. He loses 4 starters from that, national championship team. And yet he's got a team that looks like it's ready to make another run. I mean, just talk about the job that Scott Drew's done this year and how far you have Baylor going.
Again, that a lot of this comes with the culture that they've been able to instill over, especially with the past few years. And I think that's going to be the direction that Chris Beard is headed in. But they're able to add in these transfers, but they have all these returners where these transfers come in, and they have all these guys around them that know the system, and they're going to make sure you are playing within that system, and you're going to be basically just feeding off the energy and the mentality that they've had instilled in them with the years that they've come in. So James Akinjo, obviously one of the top transfers over last season, who came from Arizona. He's a dynamic guard who can really put the ball in the hole. They did an outstanding job bringing in high school kids. Again, when I was saying with Chris Beard, once he starts bringing these high school kids, which he didn't really have a chance to last year, it's going to start changing quickly. They bring in Jeremy Sokan, and they also bring in Kendall Brown, who was a 5-star kid. Those guys really bring a lot of energy and versatility to the floor. Yes, they are a little bit down, losing Jonathan Chamwa to injury this year, but they're so well coached. They defend. They can put the ball in the hole with their backcourt and their guards. So I actually have them. I'm trying to remember where I have them at. I think I have them losing. Yeah, I have them losing to UCLA in the Sweet 16. I kind of went with an upset. Took UCLA to go on another run there after last year. I think their experience and their ability to, with Jaime Jaquez, Johnny Juzang, guys to score the basketball. I think after the loss to Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament, they seem a bit fired up. Mick Cronin seems really fired up right now, so he's going to have those guys ready to go.
Yeah, that That's that's a tough bracket to pick right there. Texas, of course, down in
Mm.
the bottom half of that uh, East region. All right, in Kansas, the number one seed in the Midwest, and um, Chaya Baji. What a story! Interesting that Bill Self stuck with Remy Martin at the point guard late in the Texas Tech game instead of Devin Harris. And Remy Martin made plays, and Kansas held off Texas Tech to win the Big 12 tournament. What do you think about Kansas?
Entering the Big 12 tournament, I wasn't crazy about them. They're not deep at all. And their point guard play all year has been a serious concern. And obviously, Remy Martin's play in the Big 12 tournament has been a big revelation. It's been a huge development for them as a team. With Remy playing the way he's playing, now they're a Final Four contender. Prior to this, I thought that they are potentially, they could be a team that gets knocked out before the second round. So obviously losing to the 8 or 9 seed, I forget who they had off the top of my head, but just with their lack of depth and their lack of point guard play, I was a little bit concerned. But obviously Remy playing the way he's playing, big development now if he continues this, improves to be a reliable guard now. They can definitely make that run. You got one of the top player of the year candidates in Ochai Agbaji who can really fill it up. And if he gets hot and going alongside Remy Martin, those two can make some serious noise and be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's it's going to be fun. Okay, so as we look at the bracket, give us your final four.
Right now, my final four is Gonzaga, Villanova, UCLA, and Auburn. It's kind of surprising I don't have Arizona in there. I know they're a hot pick right now. No Kansas, no Kentucky. That's another hot pick. My national champions, I was saying earlier, I got Gonzaga going. And then my biggest Cinderella, I've already said it on here. I think TCU is going to make some noise. I have them actually. That's my biggest hot take. I could look like an absolute idiot here at the end of the week.
Can't we all?
Um, exactly right. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there's no bad picks. That's what makes it fun. But I got TCU over Arizona, and that's in that second round, in that second game. And then I also have Murray State, Kentucky team coming out, entering this postseason. Didn't matter who they played. I thought they were a team that was going to go on a run. Matt McMahon, they got three dynamic guys who can deal serious damage to any team. They run a system that these guys know extremely well, and they get a ton of options each time down the floor. So with the way they play, it's not going to change too much, and I think it's going to give some people some fits. And so I actually have them beating Kentucky in the second round and actually advancing all the way to the Elite Eight. So that's my biggest Cinderella, my Final Four, and my champion all right there for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Texas's region, after talking to you, is looking a lot harder. Um, so do you have Texas beating Virginia Tech or the Hokies?
I have the Hokies, unfortunately. I hate to say it on here, but I do have the Hokies. I the their versatility, the way they like to play, alongside my questions regarding the backcourt. Um, who's going to be the decision maker when it gets tough out there on the basketball court? Who can you trust to go out there and make the right plays? I don't think we've had the right answer all year with this Texas team. Just with the way Marcus Carr is coming in from being the go-to guy, a high-level scorer at Minnesota, to now having to try to figure out how to run the point full time, get others involved in play. I think just the way that Virginia Tech plays again, I think they can give them fits on the defensive end, and when that game gets chippy, who you're going to rely on? And I'm going with the Hokies.
Okay, well, let's pretend that Texas beats Virginia Tech. They would face either Purdue or Yale
Okay.
in that round of 32 game. Size up that matchup for us, and Do you have Purdue winning that one?
I would have Purdue winning that one, yes.
So size up the Boilermakers.
Jay Nivey, electric, exciting, fun guard. Can really put the ball in the hole. If he gets hot, there's not many guys better in the country, if any. But they like to
Does he
play
remind you
through.
of Travis? Does he? I mean, a little bit. I mean, he's not as bouncy as Ja Morant, but I mean, he's. I agree with you. He's lethal.
Yeah, he's just got that excitement factor about him. Like he's one of those guys that if he gets hot, man, he can take them all the way to the Final Four. But they do love to play through Zach Edey. That's the guy. Um, that is who they're going to be playing through, regardless. 7 foot, basically 8 feet tall. I mean, he's absolutely massive human being. Great touch. He's just improved so much. He makes us look bad every single night he takes the floor. I think we had him back end 150 coming out of high school, and he just makes us bad look every single time he steps out on the floor. But that's going to be the main matchup. Who's going to be able to check? As you were saying, Texas doesn't have anybody really over 6'7". So how can you size up with a guy who's 7'2", 7'3", 300 pounds? He's just going to dominate the paint. And then once you finally think you have an answer to that, now they go to Jay Ivey. He's just going to torch you from in the backcourt. So those two guys are a dynamic duo. They're not a great defensive team, but they can put points on the board. And those two guys are two of the best in the country at their individual positions. So tough second round matchup for sure if they make it past the Hokies.
All right, and your sleeper is your Cinderellas are TCU and Murray State.
Yep.
Speaking of John Morant, Murray State lives on.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important what you said about Scott Drew, bringing in transfers, but having the culture already established, because that was the tricky part for Beard. He had holdover players, Andrew Jones, Courtney Ramey, Jace Febres, Brock Cunningham, but they had not been a part of Chris Beard's culture. Then he brings in 9 newcomers, none of whom have been a part of Chris Beard's culture, and it's a tough culture. I mean, he's tough, demanding. They've played good defense, but that killer instinct, that eye of the tiger that Chris Beard's teams typically have, especially at this time of year. I mean, they were 2 missed free throws in the final 38 seconds last year from knocking off Arkansas, who went to the Elite Eight. So I think that's a really big point, Travis. I'm glad you made it, because I think Texas fans, saw the preseason number 5 ranking and thought it was just add water, but it's not.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. Again, because in the high school market, you're at least able to pinpoint through the evaluation process of who fits your culture. Obviously, there's always going to be a learning curve once they get in, but you can always pinpoint guys who fit your culture, and you kind of grow and groom through that. That really, once those transfers come in, they buy in a whole lot sooner. And that learning curve is a lot more rapid in those points. So yeah, not concerned at all. Scott Drew, I think that Baylor program now is a great example, and a lot of people are trying to kind of emulate in a lot of ways, just with how they've done it through recruits at the high school level, instilling that culture in them, and then filling it up with some nice transfer pieces, whether they're complementary or whether they're James Akinjo's that come in, and Davion Mitchell, right? Yeah, he was a transfer. Jared Butler. I'm trying to remember, Jared Butler either was a transfer or he decommitted from Alabama and he went to Baylor. Either way, still speaks to their culture and what they've been able to do. And a lot of people are trying to emulate that. So yeah, not concerned about Chris Beard. I think Texas fans have a lot to look forward to with this coach and this staff and what they've got going for them.
Okay, so your Final Four is Gonzaga, Villanova, UCLA, and Auburn. Is that right?
That is right, yeah.
Okay, so
it's a high-risk one, high risk.
High risk.
Like I said, I could definitely come out looking like a total idiot, and you guys will be making fun of me in about a week.
I think you kind of answered this question, but I was going to ask you, who's overrated in this tournament, a high seed who's overrated. You kind of hinted at
Mm.
Kansas going into the Big 12 tournament, but now maybe not.
Yeah,
Who?
maybe Kansas is interesting, man. Obviously, after the Big 12 tournament, it's hard for me to come in and say they're overrated, especially with Auburn losing, Kentucky losing, Duke losing. There's so many teams that fell short in their conference tournaments that it's hard for me to say that Kansas is overrated. I will tell you who's underrated, and I think was the biggest slight, and they're making the most noise on Twitter right now is Tennessee. Um, I, from that perspective, I think they, given the 3 seed, I think they actually had a chance to get a 1 seed after the way they've played. They are tied, I want to say, third most in the country in quad one wins. They're 10-7 record, and 0 losses in quad two, quad three, quad four. They just beat Kentucky twice since February 1st. They're 12-1. One loss, oh gosh, blanking on who their loss was to, but they've beaten Auburn. They beat Kentucky twice handedly, and they just won the SEC tournament championship for the first time since 1979. And so, with all the losses ahead of them, and looking at the resumes ahead of them of Auburn, who is extremely high risk, I have them in my Final Four, but that's just because I don't like that region. I have no idea what to do with that region. If those guards get hot, and Wendell Green and Katie Johnson, Auburn can slice straight through that bracket with no problem at all. But those two guards can also get you beat with the way they play the game. They love to get their shots up, and there can be several possessions in a row where they don't give the basketball to Jabari Smith, who's arguably the number 1 pick in the draft. Sorry for that tangent, but
No, that's good.
I do think Tennessee.
It's Rick Barnes. Texas fans know all about Rick Barnes.
They sure do. Exactly. Yeah, he heck of a coach, man. Absolute heck of a coach. And so that team I think got the biggest slight yesterday. And from an overrated standpoint, when I was looking at the bracket, thing that actually surprised me the most was just it's not even a high seed was Michigan getting in as the 11 seed. No play-in game. I think they're 17-14. And they get in as the 11 seed with no play-in game. I thought Texas A&M had a good case for getting an outright bid. So that one was the biggest surprise to me, and I thought they came out as the biggest winner overall when it came to the seeding. Just frankly, just getting in without the playing game.
I guarantee you, Chris Beard would trade places with Colorado State right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Colorado
Absolutely.
State, 6 seed taking on 11 seeded Michigan. Beard would love it.
Yeah, I mean that. I will say this: I actually do think Michigan can win a couple games. They entered the season top 5 in the country. Now their freshmen haven't been as good as we anticipated. Maybe it's going to take them a little bit longer with Caleb Houston and Musa Diabate. Hunter Dickinson has been he's been a bit up and down. There's been some games, especially to start the year, he had a couple hiccups, but he's starting to figure out. He's averaging about 18 points a game. But overall, man, yeah, just them getting that 11 seed without the play-in game over teams like a Texas A&M who just went on a run, and frankly had a pretty good season overall. Bunch of tough, gritty dudes as well. Obviously, a Texas team. So, yeah, man, biggest winner by far, and obviously it doesn't answer your question perfectly, but that's what I got for you.
Well, I want to ask you this because I thought this flew totally under the radar. Kansas State loses to West Virginia in the play-in game at the Big 12 tournament. Bruce Weber uses his post-game press conference to say he's not going to cut his hair until some of these programs that were investigated by the FBI and found to, have been up to no good get punished. Of course, Kansas, one of those programs, Bruce Weber, has sort of a long-running thing with Bill Self. He succeeded Self at Illinois, held a mock funeral for Bill Self at Illinois because he felt like those players were still too attached to Bill Self. What did you make of Bruce Weber and those comments before resigning the next morning?
Obviously, strong statements, competitive statements for sure. I think you're starting to see a lot of those statements kind of be made, not necessarily in regards to the exact circumstances that he's referring to, but you're starting to see a lot of anonymous quotes of coaches come out, kind of talking about just like the overall structure of the NCAA right now, especially given the transfer portal. And with no year to sit out, you're hearing a lot of people complain and talk about I guess if you want to use the word tampering, I guess that would be the word, where handshake lines are now recruiting lines, and you can use it to kind of weasel your way in to steal another person's player. And so I think it's all just college basketball is just in a bit of a strange place right now with these allegations. I mean, obviously LSU just got smacked this week. Will Wade gets fired. There's a lot of stuff to still play out among the college basketball landscape. So definitely something a competitor would say about another. It's really all I got about it.
Yeah. It was odd, to hear those comments.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it made a lot more sense the next morning when he resigned.
Yeah.
K-State sounds like K-State thinks they might be able to get Brad Underwood. Speaking of Illinois, what would you make of that?
That would be an interesting move. Illinois is a great job. It's a really good job. They got an extremely fiery fan base.
I know he's an alum. I know Brad Underwood's
Yeah,
a State alum. I don't know if he leaves Illinois.
that's what I'm saying. Like, Illinois, especially in the era of NIL, to me, it's just difficult. That fan base is so passionate, so big, that you can do a lot of damage. And you got a great recruiting pipeline right there in Illinois, in the Midwest. Like that it's just a high level job you can win at. It's got some history to it. If he were to take it, obviously being an alum, it doesn't necessarily surprise me. But if you're looking at it from just an objective job perspective, to me, it doesn't make a ton of sense. So we'll see, man. We'll see where that goes.
Well, Travis,
go ahead. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
This is we need to get you on. Can we get you back on during the NCAA tournament? Let's talk some more college basketball. This has been great.
Absolutely. I would love to anytime, Chip. Anytime you want to have me, I'm happy to come on, man. I've enjoyed it myself. So,
well, big thanks to Travis for jumping on the Flagship podcast with us, and big thanks to everyone for listening. We appreciate you so much. For Travis Branham, I am Chip Brown of horns247.com. That's where we'll be hanging out until the next episode of the Flagship podcast. Until then, stay safe and keep the faith.